The first fool is the trusting one, the one who assumes others have hearts as soft as his own. The trusting fool walks into every room with open hands and an open heart, believing that the world is built on fairness, that people mean what they say, and that loyalty is natural. He believes, if he would never betray, then others won't either. He thinks his good intentions are armor, but in truth, they're bait. This is the kind of fool Machiavelli dissected without mercy, not because he was cruel, but because he was honest about the mechanics of power. Niccolò saw the trusting fool for what he really is, a man unfit for survival in a world built on manipulation, hidden motives, and calculated deception. A man who hands over the knife and acts surprised when it's used on him. This fool doesn't just trust, he needs to, because deep down, trust gives him a false sense of control. It lets him believe the world is simple, safe, predictable. He builds his worldview around a single illusion. If I'm honest, I will receive honesty in return. But this isn't how people work. Not in war. Not in politics. Not in business. And certainly not in power. Machiavelli said, "A prudent man must not keep faith when it no longer serves him." In other words, people stay loyal as long as it benefits them. The moment your presence becomes inconvenient, unprofitable, or weak, you're done. And the trusting fool, blind to this truth, is always the last to know. He gives too much too soon. He shares strategy without understanding leverage. He confides in those he hasn't tested. He reveals plans to those who smile at him. And worst of all, he assumes shared values where there are none. He believes intentions matter more than actions. But in the Machiavellian world, outcomes define loyalty, not intentions. There's a brutal irony to this fool's path. The more trusting he is, the more betrayal he attracts. Opportunists see him a mile away. They know he won't question motives. They know he won't notice the mask slipping. He becomes a magnet for users, liars, manipulators, because his trust is unconditional, and unconditional trust is a commodity for the cunning. The trusting fool doesn't get betrayed because the world is cruel. He gets betrayed because he refuses to accept that it is. He doesn't verify, he doesn't test, he doesn't observe patterns, he listens to words. And that's why he gets destroyed, over and over. Here's a pattern here. He enters too fast, he believes too soon, he gets burned, then he rationalizes it all away. It's just bad luck, they didn't mean it, I'll try harder next time. He never turns the blade inward to ask, why do I keep trusting people who show me warning signs? Because facing that would mean confronting his own fear of solitude, his own fear of becoming calculated. But if you want to be untouchable, you must become what the trusting fool fears most, selectively ruthless. Trust, in the hands of the powerful, is slow, expensive, and conditional. You give it after someone proves they deserve it, repeatedly. You revoke it the moment they hesitate, lie, or shift their loyalty, and even then you remain watchful. Not paranoid, precise. You want to avoid becoming this fool? Then remember, it's not your job to trust people. It's your job to read them, track patterns, test reactions, watch how they speak about others when they think you're not paying attention. People always reveal themselves, but only if you're sober enough to see it. Trust isn't a virtue, it's a calculated risk. Don't hand it out. Don't beg for it. Don't trade your safety for a false sense of moral high ground. Because the trusting fool doesn't just lose battles, he hands over the map, the keys, and the kingdom. Then acts surprised when they burn it all down. The deluded fool, the slave to fantasy. The deluded fool doesn't lack intelligence, he lacks the courage to face reality. He sees the truth but turns away, not because he can't see it, but because he doesn't want to. He clings to fantasies, to comforting illusions, to ideas that make him feel safe, no matter how false they are. He rewrites the facts in his mind to preserve the story he's addicted to, and the story always centers around one lie: I'm fine as I am. This is the fool Machiavelli would burn first, not because he's weak, but because he's dangerously blind. He is the man who believes loyalty will return after betrayal, who thinks effort guarantees reward, who assumes life is fair and intentions matter more than outcomes. And when the world punches him in the face, He blames the world, not his delusions. Delusion is not a glitch, it's a defense mechanism. It shields the ego from collapse, but it also shields you from progress. The deluded fool doesn't just ignore warning signs, he explains them away. He turns red flags into excuses. He calls manipulation passion. He calls failure bad luck. He calls his repeated mistakes just who I am. And with every justification, he hardens his chains. This fool lives in a prison of self-deception. The walls aren't real, but they might as well be, because to him the truth is unbearable. It requires change, responsibility, discomfort. So he rejects it and escapes into a world where he's always the victim, the hero, or the misunderstood genius. Anything but accountable. Machiavelli warned that a prince must deal in what is, not in what should be. Because politics, power, and life itself are brutal, indifferent, and unsentimental. And those who hallucinate justice, purity, or destiny into the chaos of reality will be chewed up by it. The deluded fool thinks belief is enough. He thinks affirmations replace action. He thinks confidence outweighs competence. And the worst part? He surrounds himself with other dreamers, people who reinforce his fantasy, people just as blind, just as soft, just as afraid to open their eyes and say, "This isn't working." He would rather stay wrong than admit he was ever wrong at all. But the truth doesn't bend. It waits, patiently, quietly, and then it crushes the fool who dared to ignore it. Every unpaid debt comes due. Every lie he told himself gets exposed. And when the collapse happens, when the illusion finally shatters, there is no one to blame. Not fate, not enemies, just the man in the mirror. If you want to be untouchable, kill your fantasies. Replace hope with strategy. Replace emotion with data. Replace delusion with brutal clarity. Because reality doesn't care what you believe, it only rewards what works. You can either be sedated by sweet lies or forged by hard truth. One path feels good, the other makes you powerful. Choose. The arrogant fool, the illusion of invincibility. There's a particular kind of fool that walks with his chest out, chin high and ears shut. He confuses confidence with competence. He doesn't just believe he's right, he believes he's incapable of being wrong. This is the arrogant fool. He's not just dangerous to others, he's a ticking time bomb to himself. He believes his experience is universal, that his gut is gospel. That advice is noise meant for the weak. He treats learning like an insult and feedback like betrayal. And in doing so, he doesn't grow, he calcifies. Hard on the outside, hollow within. Machiavelli didn't pity these men, he studied them, because they were predictable. He knew that overconfidence is not a sign of strength, but a blinding weakness. The moment you believe you're above failure is the moment you step into it. The arrogant fool ignores changing tides, mocks caution, and underestimates enemies. He believes victory is guaranteed because it once was. He forgets that empires crumble from within, often from the weight of one man's ego. Overconfidence creates a deadly illusion. The belief that being questioned is the same as being challenged. So the arrogant fool surrounds himself with flatterers instead of advisors. He mistakes silence for agreement. He mistakes respect for fear. And he thinks dominance means isolation at the top, when in reality it means exposure, because the higher he rises on the back of his unchecked certainty, the harder and faster he falls. What he doesn't understand is this: true power isn't loud, it's alert, it's composed, it listens before it speaks. The strongest men in any room are not the ones claiming to know everything, they're the ones asking better questions. They're the ones who recognize that arrogance blinds you to threats you didn't even know were there. And in war, in business, in strategy, what you don't see will always kill you. The arrogant fool rejects nuance. He wants black and white answers to a gray world. He wants to be seen as a master before he's paid the price of mastery. And worst of all, he believes his certainty is courage. It's not. It's cowardice in disguise. The fear of looking uncertain, vulnerable, or wrong, and that fear drives him to double down on failure instead of course-correcting with humility. There's a Machiavellian law here. Never let pride override precision. If your need to be right is stronger than your hunger for truth, you've already lost. And no one will tell you. They'll watch. They'll wait. They'll let you dig your grave with your own ego. Because the arrogant fool is easy to defeat. He does all the work for you. Remember this, the moment you think you've outgrown learning is the moment you begin your decline. Power is not knowing everything. Power is knowing how much you don't know, and surrounding yourself with minds sharp enough to cut through your blind spots. Don't be the fool who roars in every room. Be the strategist who listens and strikes after he understands. The arrogant fool dies loud. The intelligent one survives in silence. The fool who thinks time is infinite. The master of delay and regret. There is no fool more tragic than the one who believes he has time. Endless time. Time to waste. Time to stall. Time to do everything, just not today. He lives under the illusion that tomorrow is guaranteed, that opportunities will return, that potential can sit on ice without rotting. This is the fool who thinks time is infinite, and because of that lie he dies, with everything inside him unbuilt, unwritten and unlived. Machiavelli would not even waste ink on this man, because this man never even enters the game. He doesn't act, he hesitates. He dreams without executing. He speaks about the future like it's a storage locker where he can place his purpose and pick it up when he's ready. But the world doesn't wait for readiness, it rewards momentum. And this fool confuses movement with progress. He stays busy but not productive. He plans but never pulls the trigger. He learns but never applies. He becomes a museum of wasted potential, intelligent, capable, well-intentioned, but useless when it matters. Time, in the hands of a fool, becomes a drug. It numbs him. It lulls him into complacency. He tells himself stories like, "I'm still young," or "I'll start after this," or "There's always next month." What he's really saying is, "I fear commitment. I fear risk. I fear the discomfort that comes with execution." So he hides behind the easiest excuse of all, later. But later is the graveyard of every goal that was too uncomfortable to pursue. Time is not loyal. Time is not patient. Time is a predator. It moves forward without emotion, without hesitation, without mercy. And when it passes you, it doesn't come back. The man who understands this moves ruthlessly. He doesn't ask for permission. He doesn't wait for motivation. He understands that every hour wasted is an opportunity handed to someone else. And every delay is an open door for a more decisive man to take what could have been his. The fool who thinks time is infinite lives reactively. He waits for the perfect conditions, failing to realize that the conditions are never perfect. He wants clarity before action, comfort before motion, certainty before risk. But that's not how time rewards people. Time rewards urgency, discipline, repetition, the willingness to move without all the answers. If you want to be dangerous, untouchable, then you need to treat time like currency. Every hour has a price. Every day is an investment. And anything that steals your time without a return on power, growth, or skill is a liability. You will never get your youth back. You will never get this hour back. The world is not waiting for you to be ready. Someone out there is moving right now, sharpening while you hesitate. And when your paths cross, they won't be more talented, they'll just be faster. And faster wins. Don't be the fool who wakes up at 50 and realizes he coasted through life on cruise control. Be the man who moves with intention, every day, every hour, every breath. Because time is not infinite, and neither are you. The fool who overextends mercy, the betrayed idealist. Mercy is a weapon, but only if it's rare, only if it's earned. The fool who overextends it, who forgives too often, too easily, too publicly, believes he's displaying virtue. What he's really showing is weakness, predictable, soft, safe to cross, and he will be crossed, again and again, by the very people he spares. This is the fool who thinks leniency earns loyalty, that a second chance means they'll change, that grace will inspire honor. But human nature doesn't work like that. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. He said, "If an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared." He wasn't preaching cruelty, he was preaching finality. He knew mercy without consequence invites defiance. When you forgive without conditions, you teach them they can hurt you and still be welcomed back. You signal that your boundaries are written in pencil, easily erased. You say, "Betray me, it's okay, I'll still keep the door open." You become not feared, not respected, just convenient. And what happens to convenient people? They're used, they're drained, then they're discarded. This fool views mercy as a moral obligation, but in the real world, where power is currency, mercy must be measured, cold, strategic, reserved only for those who deserve it or those who can repay it with something greater. Anything else is vanity, mercy for the sake of appearance, and that kind of mercy invites parasites. The more you forgive, the more they test you. First it's a mistake, then it's a pattern, then it's betrayal masked as innocence. You correct it, you reason, you warn, and still you forgive. Because deep down, you'd rather seem noble than be feared. And there's the fatal flaw: you care what they think more than what they're doing. But power doesn't operate on empathy. It operates on leverage, on memory, on consequence. The man who forgives without requiring change teaches his enemies how to manipulate him. He becomes easy to read, easier to provoke, and easiest to betray. Not once, repeatedly, because betrayal only stings when there's no price. This is not a call to cruelty, it's a call to discipline. You want to show mercy, fine, but do it from a position of strength, not guilt. Do it when it serves your reputation, your reach, your plan, not when it soothes your fear of conflict. Make it known that your forgiveness is limited, that it comes with conditions, that it doesn't come twice. Forgiveness, when overused, becomes an invitation, and the people you spare too often, they're not grateful, they're emboldened. Don't fall into that trap. Be sharp, be watchful, and when someone betrays you, respond like a strategist, not a savior. Because power doesn't pity, power calculates. Let the world know. Crossing you has a cost. Only then does your mercy matter. Only then does your forgiveness command respect. The reckless fool, the slave to impulse. The reckless fool moves fast, talks faster, and thinks last. He acts on emotion, he strikes without planning. He charges into battles with no map, no armor, and no exit strategy. Because in his mind, impulse is courage. He mistakes chaos for bravery, action for leadership, and speed for strength. But here's the truth. He's not fearless. He's just undisciplined. This fool burns bridges he hasn't even walked on yet. He reacts to insults, lashes out at shadows, and ruins alliances with one careless word. He throws punches when silence would have crushed more. He chooses noise over timing, and every time things fall apart, he blames fate, bad luck, or other people. But Machiavelli would have called it for what it is: weakness disguised as boldness. Recklessness is not power, it's vulnerability dressed in adrenaline. You might look dominant in the moment, but you're building a pattern of self-destruction, one that people learn to expect. They stop trusting your decisions, they brace for your explosions. They don't see you as dangerous, they see you as volatile, and nothing loses respect faster than a man who can't control himself. Power, real power, is not loud, it is precise, calculated, cold. It doesn't jump, it waits, it studies. It lets the fool swing first, burn out, overextend, and then it moves. And when it moves, it's final. The reckless fool doesn't understand this. He thinks pausing is weakness. He thinks patience means fear. So he jumps at the first opportunity without asking, what's behind this? Who benefits? What's the cost? He signs deals that enslave him. He starts wars he can't finish. He speaks when silence would have kept him untouchable. And every time, he tells himself he was being real. But being real without being strategic is just self-sabotage with a mask on. Machiavelli said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. The reckless fool, though, does it immediately, with no thought, no foresight, no understanding of long-term consequence. He lives in the moment like there's no war around him. But there always is. The battlefield just isn't always visible. You want to be powerful? Then master impulse control. Not just in action, but in tone, in timing, in presence. The world gives its power to the man who looks like he's already won, even if he hasn't made a move yet. So when someone disrespects you, don't react. When someone tests you, watch. When you feel the fire building in your chest, breathe. You are not here to prove you're alive. You are here to build a position they can't challenge. Let the reckless burn themselves out. Let them destroy their futures for a quick, emotional win. You're not that man. You play for legacy. You move like a ghost, calm, cold, inevitable, because nothing terrifies your enemies more than the man who waits and never wastes a single move. The fool who thinks loyalty is permanent. This one is dangerous, not to others, but to himself. He walks through the world believing loyalty is carved in stone. He believes if someone stood by him once, they always will. He thinks loyalty is unconditional. That kind of thinking doesn't just get you betrayed, it gets you ambushed. This fool builds his life on a lie Machiavelli dismantled centuries ago, that loyalty is eternal. It's not. Loyalty is a transaction. It's built on relevance, benefit, alignment, leverage. And the moment those shift, loyalty evaporates like mist under heat. Gone. Machiavelli wrote, "Men are less hesitant about harming someone who makes himself loved than someone who makes himself feared, because love fades, convenience fades, but fear remembers." The fool who thinks loyalty is permanent believes that shared history equals future commitment. He puts his faith in the past, not realizing that human nature doesn't look back. It looks at the present. And if you no longer serve a purpose, if you no longer offer protection, value, fear, or power, your allies will vanish. Or worse, they'll switch sides. Think of it this way. Loyalty is like gravity. It only holds when there's mass, power, relevance, value. If you lose that, the orbit breaks, people drift, and some come crashing down on you with the very knowledge you gave them. That's the part the fool never sees coming. He gave them the blueprint. Now they use it against him. Don't expect loyalty from those who have more to gain by betraying you. Don't expect gratitude to outweigh ambition. Don't expect sentiment to override self-interest. That's not cynicism, that's realism. And if you want to survive at the top, you better embrace it. Real loyalty is not verbal, it's positional. People stay loyal when it benefits them to stay. People stay loyal when your downfall would cost them more than your success. You want loyalty, then make it expensive to betray you. And even then, don't depend on it. Build redundancy, build leverage. Make sure you have control, not comfort. Because here's the Machiavellian core of power. It's better to create dependence than to rely on devotion. Make others need you. Don't let yourself need anyone. You might think this sounds cold. That's because it is. But cold is the temperature where weakness dies. And you're not here to be warm. You're here to be untouchable. So let others believe loyalty is some holy bond. Let them cry betrayal when people walk. You expect it, you plan for it, and when it happens, you're already 5 moves ahead. Because you never assumed anyone would bleed for you, you just made sure they'd bleed if they crossed you. That's the difference. That's power. The fool who reveals his plans, the man who hands over the blueprint. Some men ruin themselves not through weakness, but through exposure. They talk too early, they reveal too much, they think transparency is strength, when in truth it's a liability. This is the fool who reveals his plans, his moves, his next steps, and worse, his intentions. He walks through the battlefield of life with his strategy painted on his chest, then wonders why he keeps getting ambushed. Machiavelli would have dismissed this man as tactically unfit. In The Prince, he advised leaders to be great dissemblers, masters of disguise, men who knew how to cloak ambition, conceal motive, and manipulate perception. Why? Because power is not just in what you do, but in what others think you're about to do. The moment you reveal your intention, you give control away. The fool believes that sharing his plans proves confidence, But real confidence moves in silence. Real power doesn't advertise, it executes. When you tell others what you're going to do, you give them time to react, time to resist, time to steal, sabotage, imitate, or intercept. You give away the element of surprise, which is one of the few natural weapons a strategist has. And let's be clear, people don't always listen to help. They listen to gain information, to compete, to gather leverage. And when you reveal your next move, they don't applaud your ambition, they calculate your weakness. They measure your timing, identify your dependencies, and position themselves to block you, slow you down, or outmaneuver you. The fool doesn't see this. He thinks the world is interested in his journey. He shares goals with strangers. He announces his vision before it's real. He lets emotion override discretion, and in doing so, he loses the upper hand before the game even begins. He trades the power of surprise for the illusion of support. Understand this: plans are power, and power is best used when it's least expected. A silent move is 10 times more effective than a loud one. If your enemies, competitors, or even friends know your steps, they can predict your shape. But when you keep your strategy concealed, they're left chasing shadows, second-guessing your silence. That hesitation is worth more than any explanation ever could be. You don't need to be mysterious. You just need to be disciplined. Say less, do more. Let your actions arrive like a blade in the dark, not a drum roll from miles away. Build in silence. Move in shadows. Let them wonder how you got so far, so fast, without saying a word. And above all, learn to enjoy the edge that privacy gives you. Not secrecy out of fear, but tactical silence born from clarity. You're not hiding, you're preserving your advantage. And in this world, advantage is everything. The fool seeks recognition, the strategist seeks results. One needs to be heard, the other needs to win. Choose who you'll be. The fool who argues with everyone, the slave to ego. Some men crave battle, not to win, but to feel seen. They argue not to solve, not to clarify, not to understand, but to prove, to be right, to dominate, to feed a bloated ego that can't survive silence. This is the fool who argues with everyone. He walks into every discussion with a loaded gun, ready to shoot down ideas, opinions, people. He thinks disagreement is a form of strength. He thinks having the last word means he won. But Machiavelli would look at him and see a man bleeding power with every breath. Because argument isn't always strategy, it's often leakage, a sign that you're too reactive, too fragile, too hungry for validation. This fool confuses noise with control. But the more he speaks, the more he reveals. He exposes his insecurities in real time. He tells you what gets under his skin. He gives away the buttons that can be pushed again and again. And worse, he drains his energy fighting battles that don't even matter. He wages war over pride, opinion, and feelings instead of playing to win. Machiavelli understood the psychology of silence. He wrote, "A prince must learn to simulate and dissimulate." Translation: know when to speak, and, more importantly, when not to. The man who argues with everyone shows his cards too early. He tells the world where he stands, what he hates, who he despises. And the world uses that information against him. You want to be powerful? Then learn to observe without reacting. Learn to hear stupidity and say nothing. Learn to let people dig their own graves while you say only what's necessary, if anything at all. Because when you argue with fools, you don't separate yourself, you join them. The master strategist never wastes his voice proving points to people beneath his level. He doesn't engage unless the outcome is leverage. Every word is a weapon, not a performance. The fool? He argues because he needs to be heard. The powerful man chooses when to be silent because he's already in control. Arguing with everyone is emotional vomiting. It's a loss of posture. And it's usually triggered by a deeper insecurity, the need to be seen as right, smart, or respected. But real respect is never earned through debate. It's earned through results, through outcomes, through influence that doesn't need volume. Let others fight to be right. Let them burn themselves out defending their fragile identities. You sit back. You gather data. You act when it matters, not when it feels good. Because in the end, the fool who argues with everyone wins nothing but exhaustion. and a reputation for instability. The strategist, on the other hand, speaks when his words move the room, and when he doesn't, that silence is a message in itself, louder than any argument, sharper than any insult, and far more powerful. The fool who seeks approval, the beggar in disguise. The fool who seeks approval walks through life with a hidden leash around his neck, and the worst part, he put it there himself. He smiles when he wants to scowl. He agrees when he should disagree. He lowers his voice, his standards, his instincts, all for the illusion of being liked. He doesn't want power, he wants permission, and because of that, he never gets either. This fool isn't obvious. He may seem confident, outspoken, social, but look deeper. Every move is calculated not for strategy, but for acceptance. He tailors his opinions to the room. He mirrors the energy around him. He lives on external validation like a starving man lives on scraps. He's addicted to being liked, and like all addicts, he becomes predictable. Easy to read, easy to use. Machiavelli warned about this weakness without mercy. In The Prince, he wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved if one must choose. Because love, especially the kind built on approval, is fleeting. It fades the moment you stop giving people what they want. The fool who builds his identity on the applause of others will be shattered the second that applause stops. And it will stop. The approval seeker sacrifices authority for affection. But here's the brutal truth. People don't respect the man who needs their validation. They tolerate him. They keep him around for entertainment, for comfort, for ego. But they don't follow him. Why? Because he follows them. Power demands polarity. You must be willing to be disliked, misunderstood, even hated. The approval seeker avoids this like a plague. He wants harmony, not hierarchy. But you cannot lead, build, or dominate while begging to be accepted. Every time you choose approval over authenticity, you kill your edge. You become forgettable. There's no strength in needing to be liked. Strength is when you stand firm in the storm of other people's opinions and keep moving forward, unshaken. When you speak truth and let it sting. When you walk into a room and say less, but mean more. The man who seeks approval talks too much, apologizes for his presence. The man who commands respect, he doesn't need to be understood. He just needs to be unignorable. Stop looking for validation. Start building value. Respect doesn't come from being agreeable. It comes from being useful, intelligent, and unshakable. Stop adjusting to every room you enter. Let the room adjust to you. People admire the man who doesn't flinch. The one who doesn't chase attention, but owns it through presence alone. If you want to be untouchable, learn to walk alone. Learn to be feared before you're liked. Learn to value silence more than compliments. Because power doesn't live in applause, it lives in restraint. Approval is the currency of fools. Respect is the reward of kings. Choose your wealth wisely. You've seen the 10 fools. Maybe you saw parts of yourself in them. Good. That means there's something left to sharpen. Because awareness is the first weapon. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to become dangerous. Calm, calculating, respected. The world doesn't honor softness. It honors those who evolve. So cut the weakness, keep the lessons, and step into your next move like a man no one can predict. Because that's the man no one can stop. If this series hit different, it means you're ready to rise. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share, and turn on notifications. This isn't motivation, it's mental warfare, and we're just getting started.